We would like to ask Johnny and David Ellingson to come forward. Where's Johnny at?
Back here. Back there hiding.
And if you would come up here so we can get some pictures, some photographs. Your spouses are certainly welcome, your family. Before we pull the curtain off the sign, I'd ask David or Johnny if they wanted to share a few words. So, gentlemen. Go ahead, John.
Tony already said it. You've done a good job.
Yeah, I was talking with Carla earlier and passed on all of that stuff that you expected us to say something here this morning. And Johnny's response was,
It's all been
better
said.
go prepare your speech, Dave. Well, it's really good to be back in my hometown again. I think we moved away in 1971. First went down to Kittery. We were there for a year, and then went up to the West Coast after that. So we've been gone a long time. We came back for visits occasionally, but gone a lot. So this time back right now, it's almost like old home week.
Yeah.
You know, it's like class reunion all over again. And Tony, you messed with me. You messed with my mind, okay? I had all of my thoughts ready to go, okay? And then you gave that speech this morning, and it's really hard to follow something like that, okay? It just touched every one of us. I think all three of those young men touched each one of our hearts. We
Yes.
all knew them. This is a small town, and all three of them died just about the same time, in a very short period of time, which was a tragic event for the town. You know, we all suffered as a result of that.
Right.
But I have about a few remarks prepared, Tony, if I can get through those.
Go ahead, Dave. Any nine, but
It's about 35 minutes worth of speech.
Sound like Tony now.
take that stick away.
Well, I'm a part-time politician, so you know, whenever there's money flowing around or people are listening, you get to talk. You know, you get reelected.
Right.
Anyway, I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming to this event. This is an important event in our family, in our lives. This means a lot to me that you're here for this dedication ceremony. And I don't know if you picked this up by accident or whatever, but we used to live on Pleasant Street,
That's
right
why
up there.
it wasn't an
okay?
accident.
So it's really, you know, touching for us that this bridge, in fact, is going to be named after my brother Jimmy. And for those of you that don't know me or can't remember me, because I'm not as young as I used to be, okay, when I was in the Milo area, I'm Jimmy's older brother David, and this is my other brother Johnny.
Younger.
I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say you're the older one.
Yeah.
But not true. Anyway, but this is to honor Jimmy and his sacrifice to the country, you know, and he displayed a distinguished level of courage and excellence in everything that he did. And certainly when he was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam, and you talk about those guys that are the lifeblood for those guys on the ground, you know, Jimmy was there for all of that. So with me today is my oldest son, Mike. There's my oldest son, Mike, right there. He's just a little guy. I have one other son, Steve, but he stayed behind back in Paulsbo, Washington, which is near Seattle, because my wife has some really severe lower back problems right now, and she couldn't make, you know, almost a full day trip on an airplane to get here. So he's there taking care of her. She's getting around with a walker right now. We're hoping that we can get some treatments for her to restore her life to some degree. She's a farmer's daughter, so you know that she's been hard working all her life, you know, and she doesn't like this being sitting around. Let's see. You're not going to speak, so I got to talk for you.
Right, thank you.
Okay. John's wife Carla is here somewhere. There she is, right there. My nemesis. She always picks on me. Always. Nephew Jeff. Where's Jeff? There's Jeff. And niece Jenny. Oh, You're not with Jeff, okay. Did you bring any great nieces and nephews with you? I left them all home, but they're here somewhere. My roommate from the University of Maine was going to try to get up here from New Gloucester, but he was having car troubles yesterday, and I think he's got some Maine roots in him, even though he lived a while in Massachusetts.
We forget that.
Because he doesn't like to buy anything new. He wants to get something old and just keep fixing it, you know. So he couldn't make it today, but we'll see him before I go back. I mean, it was almost like a class reunion. You know, my classmates are here from the class of '65. I didn't recognize them because they didn't look like that when I was going to school with them. But I'm glad that they're all here. And if I didn't recognize you, you need to come up and say hi, because that means a lot to me that you guys are here and turned out for this. I guess one of the things that I wanted to say was I wish my mom were still alive, that she could see this, because I know when Jimmy died, she was just devastated as a result of that. And I think she lived with that with the rest of her life. So something like this would have meant a lot to her, but she's not with us anymore.
She knows about it.
Oh yeah, yeah, she does. And you kind of never get over, you know, the pain of losing someone. You know, that's kind of embedded in your heart, you know, and it lasts forever. It's always there. And you keep reflecting on that. I reflect on all three of them, not just my brother, but the other two as well, because they all meant something to us. We all had a connection with them, but that is there. And they're heroes in our lives, as was said earlier this morning. And, you know, the families that we're going to recognize today know what this is all about. They know the pain of suffering coming from losing a loved one. I want to also thank the people that are responsible for making this happen. My classmate, Steve Hamlin, right here, sent me a message on Facebook. And he said, hey, you know, I was at the select board meeting about a year ago, making a presentation to the select board, saying we've got 3 bridges, we lost 3 young men, why don't we go ahead and recognize them? And so the select board, you know, Tony leading the select board, took that issue on. I had to get the state legislature in order to actually name these bridges, because these are the state's bridges. There's not enough money in Milo to pay for these things.
Tony's got it. Yeah, I was gonna say, I heard Tony
And so it
does.
took a while to get that, you know, go through the legislature,
You
but
wouldn't
the
let Pete have any.
legislature passed that this year. And so they set in motion a plan to name these bridges and make it happen. And the idea was they were going to finish construction on the bridges. You know, this one's done, one out over the Piscataquis River was done, but the Sebec River one downtown is just in the design review stages right now. And then I was talking with Mike Mulheron. Mike, where are you? There's Mike right there. And we had a little discussion about that. And he said, you know, we're all going to be in wheelchairs by the time that last bridge finally gets designed and built. You know, they're going to have to wheel us up there in order to do this. So he called Tony, and right after that, you know, all of this got scheduled. Why don't we just name them now? We can always move the signs anywhere those bridges are built. And so thank you, Mike. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Tony, and the rest of the select board. And Bob, you know, being the town manager, thank you for what you've done to make this happen today. Let me give you a little history about Jim. He graduated from Milo High School in 1968. Right after that, he enlisted in the Army and was sent off to Fort Rucker for flight training as a helicopter pilot. And so after he finished his training, he came back, and he was here for the summer. And then on September 23rd, I took him down to Bangor to catch his flight out to Vietnam. And that was the last time that I saw him. Because shortly after that, well, you know, January 18th, his helicopter was shot down. But he was in country a little bit less than 4 months from the time he arrived over there. And in that week of January 18th, 1969, he was missing in action. That's all they tell you. Well, my then fiancée, Dee Dee Searles, took my mother down to the university to visit with me. And we were sitting out in the parking lot in the car out there, and she was just talking about all this stuff. And you know, she never came down to see me, and she really didn't say anything about Jimmy. She just wanted to, you know, spend some time with me. And so they left and went home, but apparently everybody else around me knew that my brother was missing in action. But it was finals week, and my mother didn't want to say anything because I was studying, trying to pass all these final exams. So Friday, I just finished my last final, and I was packing up the car to go home, and one of the guys that I knew came up to me and said, "Your brother is missing in action." Well, I'll tell you, that was a pretty long ride home that Friday. And it was a few days later, here comes the Army sedan. And when the Army sedan comes down your driveway the second time, it's never good news, okay? And that's when they told us that Jimmy had been killed, and we had to plan for the funeral. My dad wanted the casket open, but his brother and the Army really said, "Hey, when these things crash and burn, you don't want that to be a memory, you know, that you'll remember forever." And probably is a good thing, because I got enough of these memories I have to remember now. Anyway, thank you for this tribute. These fine young men deserve your, are deserving of this honor. And I really hope that the Milo Historical Society writes some things up about these three young men, because they weren't very old. They didn't have a long history in which we can reflect on. Normally they name these bridges after politicians like Dr. Evans. But when we have a hero in our midst, okay, this is really something. And like you were saying, Tony, about 3 generations, we forget what's going on. And it'd be something good to try to capture that for the future, that everybody can reflect on what these 3 men did for our country and made our town really proud. So thank you for that.
Go ahead. Yep. Yeah, why don't you do that, and then, thanks, David. Johnny, why don't you go over in Carla, and we can get some pictures of your family when that comes down. The other one on the other side of the bridge, we'll take down later. Agreed? Very good.